Welcome back to Truth Bombs and Tea. You may notice a little bit of a different background behind me. Today is very, very overcast. It has been raining here quite a bit, so it was very dark in my office. My office backs onto my wraparound veranda, so I've got a nice big veranda, which is fantastic for the summertime. In the winter, it tends to make my office a little dark, especially if there's no sunshine, which there isn't today. So if you are new here, welcome to Truth Bombs and Tea for the first time. I'm your host and founder, Tina Bindon. And Truth Bombs and Tea is all about living life to the full, not just surviving life, but thriving in life and living the rest of our life as the best of our life through making sure our mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health is as best as we can on this journey. So it's full of tips, up-to-date information, expertise on particularly emotional intelligence, and all things personal development. So turns out that one of the top most queried or Googled problems is, how do I become more confident? And it's a really interesting phenomenon that so many people, millions and millions of people around the world, are Googling this particular issue. And I won't dive into all the reasons why we're not self-confident. I have done a video on my website, and you'll find it pinned to the top of this YouTube channel, called How to Be Happy. And in that video, I break down the 3 really powerful influences that cause us to think the way that we do, to act the way that we do, and to live life the way that we do. So be sure to check that out. So today I'm going to talk about 10 different tips or tools that we can all use to become more self-confident. And the first one is self-awareness. And self-awareness is basically knowing yourself and the real situation, so the reality of the you. So yes, we celebrate and are aware of our gifts, our skills, and our talents. But we're also aware of some of the limiting beliefs that we have, some of the bad habits that we have. And we're realistic about the fact that we need to improve ourselves in some areas, right? Not for anyone else's sake, but for our own, so that our problems can be diminished, our stress can be decreased, and our happiness and our productivity can increase, okay? So self-awareness is the number one foundation, because if you don't know yourself, if you can't celebrate your wins and you think you have no faults, then the rest of these tips aren't going to make any difference. And in fact, the rest of your life is going to be kind of a Groundhog Day, because there's no growth, okay? So if you really want to dive into self-awareness and to check whether you are aware and how to become more self-aware, I have a 2-part video series here on the channel. Or if you prefer to read, there is a 2-part blog series on my website, truthbombsandtea.com, okay? But tip number 1 is to become more self-aware. So check those out. Speaking of checking things out, before I go on to the other tools, and number 10 is a real doozy, so be sure to stay around for that one. I did want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. I find that a lot of people watch the videos, but only certain people subscribe. And subscribing to the channel really helps me out, because YouTube needs certain indicators to show my content to anyone. Subscribing helps YouTube understand that there are people out in the interwebs that are interested in my content. Liking it allows the algorithm to show you more things similar to that, my own and other people's, okay? So liking is important. And then the notification bell is actually the most important, because the change now in YouTube is such that if you hit the notification bell, then it's a really big signal to YouTube that you do want to see my content popping up. Otherwise, if you don't hit those things on your favorite channels, then even if you watch it a lot, eventually YouTube will stop showing it to you, okay? Because it considers the notification bell as a #1 indicator, and then a subscribe and a like. So please consider doing that. All right, step number 2, or tool number 2, is to set goals that are achievable. So there's nothing wrong with setting goals. Goals are great. They usually drive us forward and we make progress through it. However, goals that are just set because you think you have to, or you should, or someone else has imposed those goals on you, generally don't work, okay? So the first thing about goals is set goals that are actually important, okay? So not all your goals can be set by you. If you work for someone, they have goals, okay? So let's put the caveat on there that the goal has to be important, either to some part of your life, like your career or family, or to you personally. So goals have to be important. And 2, goals have to be realistic and achievable. I really love to go to art galleries, and I really appreciate people who can paint. And if I want to learn to paint, an unrealistic goal would be, I'm going to take a couple of lessons and then I'm going to sell art on Etsy, or even open up, put a display in an art museum or an art gallery, right? That's unrealistic. But if I say I'm going to take lessons and then see how I go and learn the basics and improve, that's realistic, okay? So number 2 is set realistic goals, because studies have shown that we find competence and self-confidence when we start to achieve moments or achieve things, okay? So if you make your goals important and small and achievable, you'll gain more and more momentum and more self-confidence. So tip number 3, speak to yourself nicely. Pardon me. If you had a little recorder in your mind, in your brain, and heard your thoughts, you would absolutely be horrified at yourself. Most, if not all of us, have periods of time, and some greater and some lesser, where we really beat ourselves up. We talk really negatively to ourselves, okay? And studies have shown that that doesn't work, okay? And even if it does in the short term, certainly over the long term, it erodes your self-confidence and your self-esteem. So we need to replace the habit of talking negatively to ourselves with the habit of talking positively to ourselves. So instead of saying, I failed, we can say, I'm learning. Instead of saying, I can't paint that watercolor, we can say, I am learning the skills to paint better. Instead of saying, I can never do work presentations because I suck at them, we can say, I'm learning how to do presentations and getting feedback which helps me improve. So yes, sometimes it's a little bit hard to flip the script because it's so ingrained in us, but it's just about being aware and starting to replace I have to with I should. I'm a failure with I'm learning. I'll never get there with I'm making progress. Okay, so you just start small and then there's a compound effect that happens. Okay. Number 4, improve our body language. So turns out that the mind and the body are really, really interconnected. So we're not just dragging our bodies around. Our body and our mind are very, very intertwined. And if you think about it, if you're frightened of something or if you're uncomfortable, your body will automatically retract or withdraw. You may put your arms around you to hug yourself. You may actually put your cross your arms as kind of like a barrier. So you're already doing this. So what I'm suggesting is that you do it a little bit more consciously and with more awareness. So if you are feeling a little bit frightened, instead of retracting, open the chest up. Okay, when you see someone confident walking in the street, or someone enters a room and you think, boy, that person's confident, what's their body language? It's a nice upright posture. Okay, they're not hunched in or slumped. You find that they maintain nice eye contact, that they may stand with, their legs slightly apart. They may have the hand on the hip, or one on the hip and one casually, gesturing. So body language has a great impact on the impression that you're giving to people, but also it actually signals and kind of bypasses some of the insecurities that you have, okay? Because when you're standing, and I ask you to do this now, unless you're at work, do a little experiment. If you stand with your hands on your hips and your legs slightly apart, kind of like a Wonder Woman or a Superman stance, I defy you to feel insecure or frightened. So the body can help support the mind and start rewiring the mind. So use some positive body language to help you. Number 5, developing skills and knowledge. So at some point in time, you were not familiar and were not comfortable with something, whether it was knowing about something or having a skill in something, and yet now you have mastered it. I'll give you an example from my life. When I first went into online business in 2016, I think that was, so that's a while back, when I was coaching people, I had no clue how to set up a website. I didn't know my SEO from my TOE, from my toe. So, and it really was freaking me out. But over time, when I was more realistic with my goals, I learned how to do a website. I learned how to drive traffic. I learned how to do Facebook ads, yada, yada, yada. But initially, it was very scary. And I didn't know whether I invested the time and the money, whether it would pay off, right? But I just set small achievable goals, and I learned new skills and new knowledge, and it made me a lot more self-confident and a lot more confident about how to do things and how to do online business. So I'm sure you have something now that you find pretty natural, that you're at least competent in if you haven't mastered, but not that long ago, you were very trepidatious about it. You were quite worried about it. So learn new skills and knowledge, okay? So if you are at work and, you think, I don't like getting up in front of people and talking, but this new promotion I'm going to go for requires me to do meetings and presentations, then maybe go to Toastmasters or do an online course in public speaking, okay? Gain new skills and knowledge. Number 7, learn from setbacks. We all have this, due to social media and societal expectations, this curated highlight reel that everybody's perfect, that somebody starts a business and it's $1 million in the first year, somebody starts an influencer channel and it blows up, someone's got a viral video, whatever you like. But the truth of the matter is that they had to learn things and do things, right? They may look like an overnight sensation, but there is no such thing. So they would have failed many times. Elon Musk, by his own admission, started many different kinds of businesses and did many different things, and he failed a lot, but he failed himself into success because he saw failure as feedback. He saw not quite reaching the goal as great information for him, okay? So see your failures or setbacks as feedback. I'm just going to have a little cough here, sorry. Okay, at least you know this is authentic and I'm not a bot. Okay, number 8. Track your progress. So we're so busy, you know, going from one goal to the next goal and doing this and doing that, that we're not really tracking how we're progressing. So if you do set achievable goals, then, you know, have a look at the end of each day or at the end of each week. Because if you don't know how far you've come, you kind of don't know where you're going or when you've actually achieved something. So track your progress. If it's things like, you know, drinking 2 liters of water a day, you know, have those little cups on your diary, and every time you've drunk a cup of water at work or at home or whatever, you color it in. Things that get tracked get done. Things that get noticed, where you put your time and attention, get achieved. Okay, if you just throw it up into the ether and you're like, oh, I think I drank a glass of water, I can't remember, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. So track your progress. Number 9, celebrate your wins. So when you do reach 8 glasses of water, you know, do your little happy dance. When you do speak in front of a team meeting and you do well, or at least you get through it and people give you feedback on it, go out and, you know, grab yourself a coffee. Celebrate wins, no matter how big or how small, because it reinforces to you that you're doing well, okay, which builds your confidence. And it gives you that nice dopamine hit where the happiness and satisfaction come out. Number 10, and this is perhaps, other than number 1, the most important, and start asking different questions. Instead of saying, why don't I drink water? Say, what is it that is preventing me from having 8 glasses? Okay. Instead of saying, why can't I lose weight? Say, what is it that makes me go to the fridge when I'm not even hungry? So the what questions give you really specific, important information, whereas the why questions allows your brain to come up with these stories, right? But the what questions are more factual. So try asking what questions when you come to a particular confidence issue. So what is preventing me? What do I think is going to happen if I present this at work? That's going to give you information. Whereas why don't I like to present is too generic. All right. So those 10 tools, those 10 tips are tried and true. They're proven through study and research. And the most important thing is that they're simple to do. So here's my takeaways for you. We all have lack of confidence at certain times of our life. That confidence can be gained through these 10 tools or tips. To take one of the tips only and practice it until it becomes a habit, and then you can come back to this list and do the next one. But if you do each of these things on the list, your confidence will skyrocket. And in fact, if you do these 10 things until you have made them a habit or mastered them, you will feel so different to where you are now. And it doesn't take that long. Just have to choose one and incorporate it. Okay? You can completely transform your life through becoming more self-confident. And that's the 10 tips and tools I've shared with you today. So if you've liked this, please hit the like button. If you know someone that could do with these simple tips to transform them and help them become more self-confident, please share it. Subscribe so that you know that a new video is coming out each week, and hit that notification bell because it will tell you when the new one drops. Okay? Well, thank you very much for hanging out with me. And until next time, let's make the rest of our life the best of our life. Bye for now.